It was a Thursday evening, just after 6:30 p.m., when I came home from work to find Emma standing in front of the mirror, putting on lipstick she rarely wore. She was wearing a deep red dress, the kind she'd only worn on anniversaries, and her hair was curled to perfection. I set my bag down slowly, watching her in the mirror. "You look different," I said cautiously. She didn't turn around. "I'm heading out this evening," she replied casually, like she was announcing she was going to the grocery store. My chest tightened. We hadn't planned anything together, and she'd been distant for weeks. I asked where she was going, and she simply smirked. "Just out. Don't wait up." I stepped closer. "With who?" My voice was calm, but my heart was racing. She finally turned to face me, her eyes holding that mix of defiance and guilt I'd seen before. "It's just a girl's night. Don't make this into something it's not." I looked at her, at the dress, the perfume I hadn't smelled on her in years, the nervous flicker in her eyes, and I knew she was lying. I took a deep breath and said it quietly but firmly. "If you walk out that door tonight, Emma, don't bother coming back." Her smile faltered. "Are you threatening me?" she asked, her tone sharp. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I'm just telling you that whatever's on the other side of that door means more to you than this marriage. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise." She grabbed her clutch, clearly irritated. "You're being ridiculous," she muttered, moving toward the door. My stomach churned. I'd spent 20 years building a life with this woman, and I could feel it slipping through my fingers. She opened the door without looking back. The moment it clicked shut behind her, I stood there for a long time, frozen. Then, something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I went straight to the home office, powered on my laptop, and opened a file I'd been keeping for months. Quiet little notes and evidence of her late nights, unanswered calls, and strange credit card charges. I had been suspicious for a long time, but I'd never wanted to face the truth. Now I was ready. I called my friend Luke, a private investigator, and told him tonight was the night. He'd been on standby, knowing I might eventually need confirmation. He promised to follow her from the moment she stepped into her car. Meanwhile, I walked into our bedroom and began pulling out my essentials. Clothes, documents, my watch collection, and the photo album I wasn't going to leave behind. My hands were steady. I'd already decided what would happen next. An hour later, Luke called. "She's at the Belmont Hotel," he said grimly. "She's not with any girlfriends." My jaw clenched. "Who?" I asked. "You're not going to like it," he replied. "It's Mark." My stomach dropped. Mark, my so-called friend from work, the man I trusted enough to invite into our home. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I hung up the phone and continued packing. By the time Emma came home at 2 a.m., the house was almost bare. My clothes, my laptop, and my personal files were gone. The joint bank account had been emptied of my half. My car was gone from the driveway. All that was left on the kitchen counter was an envelope with her name on it. Inside was a copy of the hotel receipt, courtesy of Luke, and divorce papers I'd already had prepared. On the note, I'd written only one sentence. "You walked out that door, and you walked out of my life." Luke later told me she sat at the kitchen table for over an hour, just staring at the papers. The next morning, she called, 12 missed calls in a row. I didn't answer any of them. By the end of the week, her texts had shifted from anger to begging, "Please, can we talk?" It was a mistake. "You mean everything to me." But I didn't respond. I'd spent too long being her backup plan, her safe place to fall when her thrills wore off. That man was gone. Within a month, Mark had ghosted her. She tried to call me again, this time crying so hard she could barely speak. I told her I wished her the best, but I was moving on with my life. I meant it. I'd sold the house, moved to a smaller place near the coast, and started over. It wasn't easy, but it was peaceful. I no longer lived with a constant knot of suspicion in my chest. I could finally breathe again. Looking back now, I realized that the night she walked out wasn't the end of my life. It was the beginning of my freedom. People think betrayal destroys you, but in reality, it strips away the illusions you've been clinging to. That one sentence I said, "If you walk out that door," became the line that saved me. Emma thought she could leave and still come home to the man she'd left waiting. Instead, She found an empty house and a man who finally chose himself.